Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. There is a big data collection effort that's going on at the moment where streamer Slippery Jim is putting together a Herculean effort to try to map out the odds of divination cards in the game, and particularly from stacked decks. So what he has done is traded for 250,000 stacked decks. He is then farming them out in batches from 2,000 to 10,000 to various trusted people around the community, and we're turning them in for him and then giving the cards back to him. Now, I did a bunch of 2400 for him and got some pretty ridiculous results. So I'm just going to show the footage of that entire stream here. But to give you a bit of a highlight, there was one Apothecary, that was the best card that was dropped. Second best card was an Immortal. Third best card was a Demon. And then there was something like 7 Exalted Orbs worth of pure Exalt cards. So 1.8 in Abandoned Wealths, 0.875 in the Scouts, so that's 2.675. Then we have 2 Alluring Bounties, which is 2.8. That's like 5 and a bit, 5.5. Saints Treasures take it up to a bit over 6, and Hoarders take it to just a little bit under 7, as well as like a whole bunch of other little stuff as well. So there was a single Nurse, there was a Wealth and Power, and there were a few other little things along the lines of 2 copies of the Enlighten and 1 Imperfect Memories. So a lot of good stuff. There was also one of the Divination card for the Cortex. Without further ado, I will now put the entirety of that stream up. This hasn't been edited, so it's going to be fairly long, but hopefully you have a little bit of fun watching it. May your Varlobs have interesting results, and when you get lucky results from stacked decks, may you not have to give them back. And let us begin with turning in Slippery Jim's Divination cards. So we're just going to be dropping them here. The reason that I've got this stupid bow in here is because when I open up the stash tab with the way that I've set up my screen with a much smaller window than usual so that you can see the stream chat, that unfortunately crangles this. So what people tend to do is, there's a bunch of ways you can turn these in, but this is a popular zone to do it in. And you can do it really efficiently, or you can do it quite slowly. Now I'm going to pick up all of the garbage cards as well. There's a bunch of them that aren't setting off my loot filter at the moment. We are picking those up because they're actually in a lot of ways the most important. Things like the Carrion Crow, the Scholar, and in particular the really common divination card, Reign of Chaos, are very useful for tracking the rarity of cards in general. Hey, there's the first good card, the Immortal. So that's 1/90th of a Mirror of Kalandra, and that's a good drop already. So doing things slowly and surely seems to be paying off so far. Obviously, stacked decks don't care how you turn them in. The only difference between turning them in slowly and turning them in super efficiently is whether or not you have fun while you're doing it. Apparently, I've heard this is much easier to do with a controller, and I should probably get my controller set up at some point, but I have not done that yet. So picking up the cards that are visible first, then we'll pick up the rubbish that is filtered out. Interestingly, some of these are quite rare. The Fox in the Brambles is not a very common divination card. It's just one that no one wants. One was produced as a meme. Bitter Blossom is another very rare card. It's one that you will not see often in an entire league. You got an entire league without seeing that card, and it won't be that rare. On the flip side, things like Reign of Chaos will show up a lot, as will a lot of the other things you'll see here. Now all I need to do is just click all of these. I'm going to put the special divination cards, they're going to go in a separate spot, just so they stand out, so that Slippery Jim can see those more quickly. And we'll see if we get anything truly amazing. As much as Immortal is quite a good card, it's like usually a couple Exalts, even a few Exalts late league. There are things that are much bigger and better. What's Misery and Darkness do again? Oh, Shroud of the Lightless. It's one of the new cards. That was quite recently added. Not all that hot a drop, but it is a very rare card. Drops from Kurgle, apparently. There's the Void. Fate Worse Than Death, so that's a fragment of a Cortex. That's another one of the rarer cards, but it's also one that was recently added. It's fairly valuable because it gives an endgame focused consumable. Anything that gives an endgame focused consumable is going to be worth quite a bit more. Okay, so now we have more to turn in. Rebirth. That's the that's the one for the Sharan sword, the Onigoroshi. One of the most annoying things you could ever imagine farming in this game. I can't imagine anyone intentionally farming that without being, well, very, very masochistic. Chaotic Disposition is just 5C. This is one that stands out because early league, some cards are worth more than others, and I haven't updated divination cards on this since the start of the league. So they're all early league start setup for prices. So some things will show up on this filter that probably shouldn't. Some of the cards you're seeing here are very cheap, but also very, very useful in solo self-found. You will have seen that I had the divination card for Obliteration. That is something that people do target farm quite a bit. Well, it's just a matter of running Delve and you'll find them. One thing that changed in 3.18, we're pretty certain of this, although Jim's data will confirm it. What was the valuable card again? Oh, it's just the Cortex card. It's not valuable enough to stand out. One of the things that did change in this league is that the divination cards are for maps. Ones that give maps are all more common than they used to be. We're pretty sure of that. Though, again, more data will help us confirm that, and that is part of the goal here. Well, that's a whole pile of rocks there. So Jim has given me 2,400 divination stack decks to open, which should be a little bit of fun. All rubbish here so far, but we'll keep going. Who knows what we shall find. Certainly nothing this time. There'll also be cards that are hidden, so we're going to pick those up as well. One of the reasons people often do big turn-ins here is that with the divination cards that you have no interest in picking up at all, you can just simply leave the instance, and it's very easy to clear out all of the rubbish that you don't want to pick up. You've got no interest in looting whatsoever. You can just leave them on the ground and leave the zone. But that's not something that's suitable for our purposes here, because we actually want to see all of those bad cards. Both the low-value stuff that's rare and the low-value stuff that's common we do care about. And we got another 20 to turn in on this slot. Oops, misclick there. And so far, all we've got is one copy of the Immortal, which is good, and probably does actually pay for the 100-odd decks we've used so far. It definitely pays for the 100-odd decks we've used so far. And that is always the case. The top 1% of your stack decks are most of it. And a bunch of other stuff. Oh, hey, Mustigan. Mustigan is, of course, the person that Slippery Jim has put in charge of this mad project and handing out the stack decks to volunteers/sacrifices like myself that agree to assisting with this. After all, it is a little bit of fun. All right, and now let's grab another 100 at this point. So you'll see humility showing up there because this is based on league start prices. 3 days. Gee, 3 days to buy these on trade. Wow. How many did you end up trading for? Was it like many, many tens of thousands, or was it just... Oh, 250,000. Okay. Well, that explains it. I think one of the most one of the most interesting things we're going to get out of this data-wise will actually be relative information on the exalt divination cards. So things like the relative frequency of the Hoarder to the Scout and stuff like that. There's a bunch of hypotheses people want to test with that info. And yeah, new cards. Everything that's not super rare, as long as it's like more common than 1 per 10,000, we'll be able to get some meaningful info with 250,000 turn-ins. If it's rarer than 1 per 10,000, then we're going to get a lot less info. There are quite a few new cards, yeah. There were 12 in this expansion, and then there's a bunch in the last couple of expansions as well. So there's one of the divination cards, Justified Ambition, that comes from the Conquerors. That's one of the synthesis maps. The Conquerors of the Atlas are very tied to special content now, like to Atlas adjacent stuff. Again, Heroic Shot's a sort of example of a card that's worth a bit more on day one of a league. Okay, that there was me casting my... was me accidentally right-clicking and shield charging, which then triggers all of my wand gems. That's why it ended up with that explosion thing there. The Enlightened, that's a nice drop. One of the other things we're wanting to get a sense of is the relative frequency of the Enlightened compared to the frequency of the Apothecary, which we may not be able to get enough information from only 250,000 cards on, but we'll at least get something. It'll really come down to how many Apothecaries drop. I don't think the Enlightened is worth putting in the same category as the big card we got earlier. So where's our Jim's Divination cards? This is all getting pulled over via the... You can see they're all getting pulled there via this Divination card. What do you call it? Yeah, well, you can tell by the character name that I was intending to go Arakali's Fang, and then I just got sort of sidetracked. And just stayed messing around with this. I sort of... Oh, Judging Voices. What's that again? Forbidden Shaker, of course. We do not know where this drops. It's one of those cards that no one's been able to work out its local drop yet. 2 in 25,000, okay. The thing is that until you've got like 30 or 40 successes, you can't say all that much really accurately about it. You can make hypotheses that the game might treat the Doctor, might treat Headhunter as equivalent to a Mage Blood. This is the hypothesis I would want to test. It's not guaranteed to be right, and therefore the Doctor would be, well, because it's set of 8 instead of 5, it would be treated as basically 5/8 of an Apothecary. So you would assume that the Apothecary is 5/8 as common as the Doctor, but that's certainly not proven. That's just a reasonably likely hypothesis, nothing more. And we shall take another 100 out. And see how we go with these. Tireless Extractor is one of those cards that seems to drop quite a lot from stacked decks, but doesn't seem to drop that much in play unless I just don't ever run the maps it's in. There's another Exalt card. A lot of Exalt cards dropping. That's to be expected. They're like the lower end Exalt cards do drop quite a lot with stacked decks. Yeah, that's my assumption, Meistergan. I mean, like, I'm not certain that it's right or anything. It's just one of those things that seems so realistic that it probably is right. And we'll just have to find that out. Oh, yeah, the Price of Prescience. Is that selling well in bulk? Normally it does. I know because it's my own commission. So I paid more attention to it than most have. Yeah, 2 Divine Justice in a row. Bijou is really rare. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. It's a French word for jewels. You might find that if you sell it in bulk, it may sell better. We suspect now that it drops from Conquerors of the Atlas whilst the player is under the effect of a Delirium Mirror. Underground Forest is one of the cards for Sextants. It's the other one that was buffed considerably. And doesn't seem to have been made much rarer than it used to be either. Yeah, it's pretty hard to get your hands on the sets in trade. People only ever have 1 or 2 of them. Vile Temple is just so much fun at the moment too. Although the current state of Vile Temple doesn't really synergize that well with the Delirium Layers. Unchained is a double corrupt Facebreaker. That card is underrated, I think. Like, it's just because Glove corrupts are so good. Yeah, you get a bunch of random, weird, cool stuff out of it. That's what I like about the current state of Vile Temple. It's not necessarily that it's the best map to run or anything like it, but it is just a fun one. Poor Arrogance of the Vile is a card that hasn't done as well this league, because you basically get the equivalent of 20 of them every time you run a Vile Temple now. Just by virtue of the Vile Temple having so many double corrupted uniques, which are mostly tier 4 and 5 rarity. It's more Facebreaker's a toy to play with than super powerful. It's like, it's one of those things that if you get a good one from it, you can do some fun stuff. It's not. I agree. It's not very strong. And Facebreakers had like the original Facebreakers was so nuts. But power creep happens. Immortal result. Oh yeah, that's the. That used to be a gold star one because it was the prophecy for 6 links. Used to be something that was quite valuable, but not really now. Original Facebreaker was 800 to 1000% instead of 600 to 800. And that was one of the really old, really powerful legacy items. I don't think it's aged that well, though. I don't think you'd use a legacy Facebreaker now if it was available again. Like, if they did a repeat of Legacy League and made all the old things possible to get again. I'm just trying to think if I think it's the worst of the Val underscore pyramid tile sets. I think Maze is the worst of them. Maze just feels harder to navigate, I find. They are both bad, though. Atzeri gloves were nuts for a period. Like, absolutely bonkers. Like, completely ridiculous. That's a case of something getting nerfed pretty hard, though. Oh, they needed it, too. I think Fleckens and I are going to have to agree to disagree on Maze. Oh my god, I hate that tile set. I think Maze is up there with Dungeon. Hey, Colin, how's it going, mate? I think the thing with Maze is that you get lost truly in it. Luminous Trove, that's a card that would have been worth more in a previous league. Since the Simulacrum was extended, that card has fallen in price quite considerably because you get simply more copies of the item dropping naturally. I need to get into the boys. I need to give the first season a second shot. I keep thinking I'll like it. And then I just didn't... Maybe I just watched the first episode at a bad time. So I wasn't that impressed with it. I still have Amazon, so I should probably give it a look. One of the things, Mustigan, is that you will always get rare drops here. There are so many rare drops that even though... Like, a Note in the Wind, for instance, is a very rare drop. That's the Penitent again. That's... oh, no, that's not that rare. Oops. Sephiroth. I didn't realize until last night that the Sephiroth can actually drop in the Shaper's Realm. from Dominus. Like, it's tied to the Dominus monster, but I had the Sephiroth drop from Dominus in the Shaper's Domain. I knew that it could come from the monster. I didn't know that it was also a valid drop in the Shaper's Domain. Fleckens, I have heard that that one may be... I think that's a Shabi. I'm not certain of that, though. I would suggest you ask someone that's been doing harvest services on it. Like, when I say harvest services, there's the challenge related to harvest. A Shabi killing. So yeah, just ask around someone that's been selling an Ashabi carry service. They'll know. That's how we worked out that all drops the Desecrated Virtue Desecrated Virtue card. Forward Gaze is rarer than it should have been. That's a card that should have been quite a bit more common than it is. You farmed a full set of Unrequited Love from Val Temple? Holy hell, that's a lot. Like, how many maps did that take? Yeah, all drops the Voices card, that is correct. All's been known to drop the Voices card for a while. I'm assuming it's quite a lot more common than Desecrated Virtue is. Even though it's not super common. Meistergen, do you know how rare the Desecrated Virtue card is and how rare the... what's the Voices card called again? Turning in all the rest of these. Rebirth and Renewal was one of the new cards. This is suspected to be pretty rare. Now we're out of space. Oh, Luminous Trove is rarer than Desecrated Virtue, is it? Wow. That surprises me. That feels like the sort of card that... I guess they're both boss drops. It's just that Desecrated Virtue is a modified boss drop. Like, it's basically got a favourable double corrupt on it, which usually seems to make cards about 4 to 10 times rarer. Oh, these come from the same boss. Luminous Trove and Desecrated Virtue are both from All the Crystal King. So no one farms it, but yeah. You run them when you get them. Or if you can't beat them yourself, you sell them to someone else. Or pay for a bosser to kill them. Which tends to be very common once you get a bit deeper. All is a fight that's pretty easy below about 300 depth. Well, at least, not easy's the wrong term. It's Uber Elder difficulty until about 400 depth. But once you start getting mods and stuff, it ends up being quite nasty. You need something either very powerful or more likely you need a lot of experience with the fight. The Ethereal is one that seems to be a lot rarer than people might have expected. That's the 6-link Val Regalia. Hey, Snuggle Bunsies, how's it going, mate? Desperate Crusade, the Prism Guardian card. And let's drop these off and go and grab ourselves a few more stack decks. So all of these are going into a special tab that is marked Jim's Divination cards. Oh, Meistergen, you're talking about trading for them and selling them, or are you talking about getting them yourself in Atzeri's Apex? Oh, you're over in Sweden, are you? I'm doing this manually, mate. I'm doing this manually. Just for something to fill some time, have a bit of a chat with people, and turn these in. They'll take their time. That's fine. I was going to use a controller, but I thought, the only way I could set that up would be by crangling my light, because the light is USB powered. And once I start doing that, it'll end up making the stream look awful. Yeah, might help if I can actually click in the right spots though. And we'll turn in another 20. It is funny, Snuggle, I don't ever think of Sweden as a place that is hot. I don't associate it with warmth at all. I don't know if that's a case of me being wrong, or whether it's just you've got really unseasonal weather there. I was trying to do that this league, Meistergen, with the divination card, the Sacrifice, but other people were doing it faster than I was. Divination card, the Sacrifice, is for an eye level 100 6-linked sacrificial garb. And what you would do is you would beast split them. So you would get it, you would then beast split the outcome, and then you would Deafening Essence of Greed both. That and ABBA, I think, is what we'd associate with Sweden. I have no idea if I'm right about all this. Wealth and Power is, level 4 Enlightened. That's actually quite a good drop from memory. So you can go there. Yep, you sit there in the corner. Oh yeah, see, we would consider 30 to be a slightly above average December day. December being one of the hotter months here, of course, being in the Southern Hemisphere. December and January tend to be our hottest, but sometimes we get February and March can be really hot too. Yeah, there's also some really high RNG cards. One that I used to do a lot. Now, this card is now more on people's radar because the unique in question has been buffed. But Skin of the Lords is the Chayula unique, the upgraded version of it. It has a divination card that drops from breaches, and it drops quite a bit. That card can be really good early league to buy. You can often get it for like 6 or 7C. So it's like 30, 35C for a set. And when you turn it in, sometimes you'll get something that's not very good. Those ones you can usually sell for your money back. And they end up basically letting you free roll another shot at getting a good outcome from it. You probably won't get anything you can use yourself because you can't change the colours of the sockets on it. Hey, Ricaria. Yeah, this is Slippery Jim outsourcing it to me because he has a massive, massive, massive project in mind where he's going to open 250,000 of the things, and I thought I'll do my 1% of that for him. So these divination cards all belong to Slippery Jim. Both the good ones and the mediocre and bad. I'm curious to see how long it takes to fill up this stash tab. If we end up filling this stash tab up faster than I thought, I'm going to need to dump some stuff somehow. I also have a really awkward setup on the screen at the moment, and that is because I wanted to have the chat be caught on screen so that this could then be more useful. Like if you're watching it after the fact, if I were to put it up on YouTube, you'd be able to follow the chat. Yeah, humidity is really noticeable. Hey, there's a good card. Humidity has a really noticeable effect on that. I know that in Melbourne, we don't get humid extreme heat usually. So if we get a 40-degree day here, I find that still pleasant. Most people don't. Most people will say it's too hot, but I still find it pleasant. However, in 2009, I was in Brisbane during a heat wave up there. They got to like 37, and it was overwhelming. Like, that was just horrendously unpleasant for me. And I'm someone who likes 40 in Melbourne. Yeah, stack decks are really good, especially if you run Deception Heist contracts. That's the main source of them in the game. And we shall drop. We're going to go to the actual page because we will put the nurse in the good cards section. Not. I think that's all going to get mixed together soon. Yeah, Expedition does drop a lot of them too. Not as many as Heist does though. Heist is like the ridiculous source. Like this league where I've done no heisting, just because I wanted to take a break from it, keep it fresh. I have had only about 500 stack decks drop. I've opened a few, so maybe I've had 600. I'm just going to move out of the way. Okay, let's just put that one down and grab everything. One thing you want to do, if you're doing this on a big enough scale to merit actually doing it hyper efficiently, you would probably want to do things slightly differently. And here, you would want to set up so that your loot filter has everything the same size, so stuff doesn't get moved around when you start looting it. It's also that Expedition is harder early league, and it's also less available. Like, Heist comes from mapping. Expedition mostly, access to Expedition mostly comes from Scarabs. So you have lots of access to Heists early on, whereas you just don't have the access to the... You don't have the access to the Expedition content, really. I mean, you'll get the odd occasional one in a map, but you won't get massive amounts of it. But Heist is definitely more accessible early. If you were able to beat Veritania Racaria, I think you will find that the scoured versions of the Eater of Worlds and the Exarch are easy. You'll have no trouble getting them. If you're having trouble sourcing tier 16s, don't forget you probably have some Harbinger Orbs. They will help you source tier 16s as well. There's not that much difference between the Eater of Worlds and the Eater of Worlds Quest Edition and the Eater of Worlds Invitation Edition. I think you'll find though that Veritania was harder. Even if you know Veritania, like you might have a bit of trouble early on with the Eater, but you'll pick it up. It's not a complex fight. It's designed to be hard if you overjuice it with map mods, but not by itself. Yeah, and these are fights that single target damage can really trivialize as well. The thing you'll have to learn, like there's a non-trivial required component, like assuming that you don't have ridiculous DPS that just bypasses the phase, there's a required component in the Eater of Worlds fight and also in the Searing Exarch. They both have things that you have to do where the boss is doing some mega attack that will probably one-shot you, and that you need to stop that somehow. So with the Exarch, that's dodging the balls. And with the Eater of Worlds, that is the slam. You need to basically tickle him during the slam so that he gets distracted. Oh yeah, Cirrus Zero doesn't exist anymore. Cirrus Zero was a bit of a stat check. Like, if you had, like, if you knew the fight, you found it easy anyway. But if you didn't know the fight well, it really came down to whether or not you could survive the die beam. And that was usually just a matter of, if you had endgame set up defenses, Cirrus Zero probably wouldn't kill you with a die beam. Yeah, now it's only Cirrus 8. And something far beyond that. Far, far beyond Cirrus 8. I haven't given Uber Cirrus a shot yet. Looking forward to that. Probably to failing it a few times too. While I figure it out. Always the most fun part of a boss is the times that you're trying to work it out and you're not there yet. Trying to find your own rhythm for the fight. Colin, do not suggest that to GGG. Yeah, you should just forget that Bex's email address is bex at grindingyourgames.com or whatever it is. You should just forget that you've ever heard that, and you should not suggest that to anyone. Oh god, could you imagine an endgame grinds of open X number of chests anywhere? Or in a specific map, to be even worse, like defeat the map, yeah, another evil one would be defeat the maze boss X number of times. Okay, let's not think of bad challenge ideas. Yeah, that would be horrible. Rocaria, if you got Cirrus to 5%, you will have very little trouble with the Eater and the Exarch both. And if you got Cirrus to 5%, you could probably get to the last phase of the Maven fight but fail it. And you could probably get a fair way into the Uber Elder fight as well. It's really tough to get back in. Like, I think one of the things with Cirrus that's worst about that fight is when you fail in there. When you die, it takes a lot of experience with the fight to get back in safely and make a second attempt at it. That's something I really don't like about that fight. As that often, when you die once, you end up dying 3 times. Now, that changes when you really know the fight well, but most of the people who really know the fight well aren't dying very often in it at all. So that ends up being a major frustration with learning it. Well, that's a pile of rubbish and rocks there. I think Cirrus is the worst of them because Cirrus will off-screen die beam when you're returning to the fight sometimes, and you have to be just really alert to the fact that that can happen, which doesn't really happen with a lot of other fights. There are characters that have that problem, but they're not usually like it's usually a character thing. Hey, thanks for the follow, Shin user. Getting a lot of the TFT card. I think that it was deliberately TFT as the initials on that. I think that was something that was intended by the person that commissioned it. Not sure if intended to troll or not, but it seems like it's too much of a coincidence to be unintended. The Magma Crab card drops from one specific Rogue Exile. That was something that was really good for early league divination card arbitrage. You make quite a bit of currency buying that card and then just reselling the reward from it. at league start. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other bosses that are really nasty like that, like Cirrus is. There is one, I think. I'm just trying to think which one. I mean, obviously the delve bosses you can't get back to. Oh yeah, Maven's Invitation, the Hidden. The Hidden can be pretty nasty to get back into. Because you can have a whole bunch of mess that's on the ground from Ulnatal that blocks your pathing. And blocks projectiles as well. Especially if you're relying on hitting enemies for debuffs, to debuff them. Like if you have something like Temp Chains on hit as a defensive layer, that can end up as a pretty mean thing to have. Yeah, invitations in general, I would agree, are the nastier end. Altered Perception. Oh, that's the Simulacrum card. That's not very valuable, but it's one of those really rare cards. Well, really rare because it drops from... was it Uhtred, the boss from Expedition? I think it's Uhtred, the one that has the arena that's like a mirror. Yeah, Fleckens is right. The only time you die exactly once in... Well, the only two situations in which you die exactly once in a Maven's Invite. One situation is that you're playing Cast on Death, and the other one is that you die to overconfidence right at the end. Like, you know, you're down to the last boss and you're like, oh yeah, this is all going to be really easy. Splat. Oops. Crangled. Dead. Okay, let's grab a whole bunch more out and get back to opening these cards. Yep, Snuggle's right again there. 10 ways are underrated sometimes. They can be really nasty if you get the wrong bosses in them. And the worst ones are the ones that have some sort of arena dominating effect like Rigwald. I hate Rigwald in 10 ways. Who else is there? Rigwald, Innocence is really bad in them. I think there's a few others as well. Oh yeah, Act 4 Piety. Yeah, good point. That's a very good example of a bad one. One you never want. Also, the one that's surprisingly bad is the Bog boss. It's such an easy fight normally, but it just becomes so arena dominating because it's so fast moving. And so it's just like zapping around the screen, and can hit you and put you in a world of hurt from off screen. I really don't like that boss in there at all. Ah, clicking in the wrong spot. Yeah. Okay, and we have lots of rocks there. Lots and lots of rocks. Don't open lots of stack decks unless you are okay with basically half of the value of your stack deck being your chance of getting a Mage Blood card. Because that's literally what it is. If you do a massive turn into these and you don't hit any of the big cards, then you end up burning. Astromancer is one of the rarest div cards in the game. Oh, Consecrated Ground is horrible in invitations. Yeah, those mods are awful, mate. Those mods are terrifying. They're going to make you go splat. I think Gauntlet will be a lot easier this time than it has been in the past. I'm definitely looking forward to it myself. I'm not sure whether I'll start it at the very start or not. Day 2 of it, I have some stuff on. Oh, that's... I feel that may actually be a good card. I need to check the price on that. It's definitely rare. Where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. So I know I've got things on day 2 of Gauntlet, but we'll see how much we go into it on day 1. I may not start at 6 a.m. when it starts because I'm not going to be competitive for the top prizes anyway. So there's no point stuffing up my night's sleep. Especially given that the day before I am going for a bit of a hike. Do you know? Does anyone know how much the Magnum Opus card is worth? The 3 implicit synthesized I-100 item? I'm not sure whether it's something to put into the nurse category or whether it's more something to put into the Saint's Treasure category. Yeah, Gauntlet is always good to watch. I definitely agree with that. Whether you're watching someone that's competitive, like, you know, Zizaran or I'm Exile or DS Lily or Ben, of course, or whether you're watching someone that's sort of just playing it for a bit of fun, which is where I'll be. Like, I am going to try and hit level 90 this time. I haven't got the level 90 hardcore achievement yet. That's something to get out of the way. One of those stupid things that I should probably get around to at some point. Yeah, Haunted Mansion boss, and that reminds me, the other one that's like it. Avarius Reassembled. Map boss version of that. I think it's Lily's time to win a gauntlet, or at least to place really well. Like, I remember watching her doing the Shaper fight tremendously undergeared in a previous one, and just being really impressed at how well she was managing the volatile anomalies during Bullet Hell. So she would just have all of them, should be flawlessly kiting them within Zana's bubble. Okay, so we're going to call that a Saint's Treasure tier card, and we're just going to put it in the normal pile. And we'll just say it's Saint's Treasure value. It's clearly not Nurse value. There are 2 of those synth cards, and the other one is a ring, I think. The 3 implicit synthesized ring. I'm just grabbing myself some caffeine, because caffeine is good for the soul. Actually, I'm just addicted to the stuff. Prejudice. We've only had one of that card so far. Card we don't see as much now that Veritania is less frequently encountered. Hey, Sergeant Smeltzer, yeah. Well, I always joke that of all the things I could be addicted to, it's probably the least damaging of them. Another copy of the Forward Gaze. Oh yeah, if you're going to be addicted to something, caffeine is definitely better than that. Yeah, Prejudice, you'd often get, like, during a single Watchstone cycle, you would often get maybe 6 of the card. So almost a set. Sometimes you would actually get a set. And that's without juicing the Redeemer maps. If you did juice them, you got even more. That's the... Ah, yeah, no, that's not the good one. It's Monochrome is the good one. Yeah, let's pick up this rubbish. Dying Anguish is a good card. I like that a lot. One of my favourite recent additions to the game, actually. Oh, it's... You couldn't initially juice them, but you pretty soon could. I think there was one league where you couldn't. Maybe it was 2 leagues that you couldn't juice them. Yeah, I think it was 1 or 2 leagues that you couldn't. Okay. Let us grab a bunch more. Sergeant Smoltzy, it is because I have got my... I'm playing in a very unusual window at the moment because I wanted this to be something that I could conceivably post to YouTube later. So I wanted to have the stream chat on screen on the video. Now, normally I wouldn't have that there because if it was only going to be on Twitch, then it wouldn't be there. But that's meant that I've had to resize my screen. And once I've resized my screen, this is what happens. See how you can't actually click here? That's the reason it's there. It is just simply there to take up real estate. That's the only reason it's there. It's just because otherwise I can't click things properly. It is an annoying setup, but I figure it's better than any alternative I could think up. Once I decided I was going to help Meistigan with this. Oh! Winner, winner, kitten dinner. Slippery Jim should be happy with that. So that was 50 minutes into the recording. 50 minutes and a few seconds. So, well, look, I'm not the... It's not a winner-winner for me. It's a winner-winner for Slippery Jim. I said it's his cards, so... So if Jim is online, Meistigan, and if Meistigan is still here, that is, tell him that I got him an Apothecary, so he can be happy about that, hopefully. Either that or he's just like, oh, I'm over it, I don't care, da-da-da-da-da. His usual hilarious self. Slippery Jim's such a great guy. He's just so funny. He's, Ricari, I got an Apothecary. So, well, I didn't, but Slippery Jim got an Apothecary. Yeah, I'm thinking, like, these days... I tend to set the default never sync exalt sound. I typically use that for things that I expect to be more than a quarter exalt. And I think that we could do with a new sound, but what are you going to have? Like, you want something that has instant effect. But yeah, like, there is a very big difference between a nurse and an apothecary, or between, say, a stack of 3 divine orbs, which is something else that should be probably in the exalt tier, or... You know, the Cortex Divination card is another example of something that's less than an exalt, but that is clearly an exalt sound at the moment in the current economy. Maven moan. It needs to have the instant tinkle effect though as well. Yeah, there's another example of a card that's worth less than an exalt, but is still meaningfully valuable. But yeah, like, Apothecary should have a different sound to that. I reckon it'd be interesting to see, given that I will put this up on YouTube at some point, it'd be interesting to see whether there's any meaningful increase in prices in stack decks caused by it, because there's often a lot of time people will see someone get a very lucky drop, not understand that that's rarer than, like, that's not something you should expect to have happened, and will then think that they're going to replicate it. Because, you know, we don't know the rarity of the Mageblood card. Like, we sort of think it's about 1 in 10,000 stack decks, but we don't know that. But when you're opening 2400 like I am, you will sometimes get a 1 in 10,000 result. In fact, you're sure to get a few of them. The Life Thief, for instance, that is a very, very rare divination card. Unless things have changed. Oh, there's a Scout as well. Gee. Doing well on them this run. Apothecary Scout and a 3/5 of an Exalt, whatever that card's called, Abandoned Wealth. So we have the Exalt cards. Where are they? I probably should have picked these up and put them in the right spot. Three times Exalted Orb. 7 times Exalted Orb. They can go there as well. That's a little bit of a stretch to be worth putting away like that, but we got them. Yes, this is the sort of thing that can cause stack decks to go up, even though it's not rational for them to go up. Like their expected value doesn't go up because I get an Apothecary on stream, but people's perception of the expected value can go up. And that happens a lot, especially that happens with some of the divination cards that have highly RNG effects. Like if I was to turn in Price of Loyalty, if I was to turn in 5 of them and hit a couple of really good ones, then that's the sort of thing that would really push up that card's price a lot. Especially if the ones that I hit were like, 100 Exalt ones, which are a miracle to get with that card. Yeah. Alright, we just had a blast of bad connection there. Average return on stack decks is something we honestly cannot answer, Devils or Mafia. And the reason for that is that we don't know how rare the very valuable cards are. What we do know is that they make up a big part of the value. So Apothecary, House of Mirrors, Unrequited Love, and the more common cards like Doctor, Nurse, those cards, and also all the Exile cards, those cards make probably 60-70% of the value of the cards that you turn in, but the only ones we can really put much of an estimate on the rarity of are the ones that are at the more common end of that, like the Scout and the Nurse. So we don't have, like, most of the people who have opened 75,000 or more have made profit out of it, and that's buying them at bulk prices, so at higher than normal prices. But just so much of it comes down to, do you get House of Mirrors? And is House of Mirrors 1 per 25,000? Or is it 1 per 50,000? Because that's a huge difference to the EV of the card. Like, mirrors are currently what? Mirrors are like 600x at the moment. I'm not sure. I haven't been paying that much attention to the top end of pricing this league. I think they're around 600x last I checked, but I could be wrong on that. But if they are 600, well, that's 10,000. So that means that if they are wanting 25,000 to get a House of Mirrors, that adds an appreciable amount to every card you open. Yeah, no, it is profitable. The thing is that it takes a lot of time, and the time that you spend stuffing around with stack decks, you could be doing something more profitable, like farming XP and items in Glacier, or whatever else you're into. As another Abandoned Wealth. Okay, we're not going to fit everything in this slot, so we'll just throw a few of them away so that we can then use the rest up. Oh, we just got a lag spike after doing that. And we just, what's the risk again? Oh, Venter's Gamble. Always forget that card. Venter's Gamble's pretty rare for an item that doesn't get used very much, but does definitely have its niche. Good old Reign of Chaos. Reign of Chaos is usually like 3 or 4% of the divination cards you get from stack decks. The thing with that, Fleckens, is you have to remember to turn in all of your small currency divination cards. That can be tough to remember to do. I know I've certainly derped that in the past. That's my first vanity. Vanity is a card that for a long time I've thought there should be a 2 implicit corrupted version of it as well. I don't know whether what you call it, maybe Vainglory, as like something that is still in the same realm as humility and vanity. I feel that's too close to vanity though. Oh yeah, you can definitely do it that way. Okay, and we've got a bunch of rubbish on the ground to pick up. And this lot can go away, and we can start doing the other 50. One thing I think would be really interesting from this will be to compare the amount of humility divination cards we get to the amount of vanity cards we get, and from that, make some sort of estimate as to how rare, other cards that give corrupted things are. We could do the same thing with, there's a divination card for Calm's Heart and a corrupted Calm's Heart one, and a few things like that that we might want to look into. Just some various science you can do. We may not have enough of the Calm's Heart cards to say as much, but humility and vanity being for a tier 4 rarity unique, we might be able to get some meaningful info out of that. Likewise, the ones that give a class of unique item. So I think there's a divination card for a ring that is unique, and another one for a corrupt ring. There's also one for a jewel and another one for a corrupt jewel. I think there'd be some interesting things we could tell by the relative abundance of each of those. Well, that was a stinking lot of 10. It doesn't matter. The one Apothecary is probably worth more than all of these stack decks put together. So you don't really care, even if every other card that came out was the Stormcaller. That'd be fine. We won't have let Slippery Jim down. We'll have made him currency. Not that he really needs it. I think he's rolling in at this league. Much more than I have been. After I threw away 52 exalts on a craft. Albeit a bit of a fun one. Fun toy that I haven't even used yet. Would require making a new build for it. This card drops a lot. 21, 23 alternate quality golem gems. When I say a lot, it's not common, but it's not as rare as you would expect a 21, 23 alt quality one to be. Far more common than the hook, in my experience. And yet it's more restrictive in what it can give you. Okay. The Terrible Secret of Space. Yeah, it is great. When you say very frequently, Oranges Joe, like how how frequently would you think it is? Like 1 per 10 maps? Bloodfield Vessels would be interesting to do some testing on. Do you have a character Fleckens? I know you don't have a character left, do you? You've gone and double corrupted all your stuff. I believe the answer to be yes, Devil's Soul Mafia. I'm not sure on that, but I believe the answer to be yes. There's a testing project underway by Pedrolopia. Is testing a whole bunch of mechanics related to Expedition that are not well documented. So he'll be the person. He'll come up with some findings on it. No one wants this card anymore, do they? The Wretched, since Fishwife's research indicated it's worse than people speculated it would be. Like for oh, there's another copy of it. 316, it was a really good seller. The Mage Blood was much more expensive then than it is now. There's 3 of them. Oh yeah. So you gone and crangled your omniscience. Fairgraves and a Golem, that's Coves. Coves is the one you're thinking of. It's like the beer golem or whatever it is. Like it literally just yeets a big keg of beer at you. Which is a bit of a waste if you ask me. Hey, Fairmeadow, thanks for the follow. 10 sets, yeah. So it's not common, but it does drop a bit. That's about what I thought. Actually, most of the way through this, I have to check that I've done the exact amount that I think I have, but I think that when we get to 592, that's when we're done. Full set of Bajou. Bajukes, however you pronounce it. I'm not French, so I'm not sure. Eternal War, haven't seen that card for a long time. I can't remember where that actually drops. It's an interesting one because it's actually not necessarily made better by being double corrupted. A lot of cases made worse. And that was one that was commissioned by Ziggy D, and he was talking to his chat on stream about it, and they ended up coming up with the idea, I believe. One card I'm surprised doesn't exist yet is a unique belt double corrupted. So basically the Wretched, but double crangled. That was something I was thinking really surprised me that we don't have that yet. It feels like the sort of thing that quite a bunch of people would have made, I would have thought. Because there's a couple of really high... Like, it's a super high variance card. You're almost never going to see a Headhunter or a Mage Blood, but when someone does, it's going to be ridiculous. Okay, let's drop all these away. We must be getting close to filling this stash tab now. which is going to not be fun when that happens. Yeah, we are. There is a double influenced one, yeah. It's the one that, judging by the name of the card, it's probably dedicated to the Forbidden Trove because it's TFT. The Forgotten Treasure, I think it's called. But I've got a feeling that it may be linked to TFT. I don't actually know the story behind the card. I always wonder, with that divination card up here, what does the fox say? Oh, level 20 gem. Just have a quick look at this for someone's asking stuff about crafting here. I'll have a quick look. Oh, cool. Yeah, so with respect to that, I wouldn't recommend recombinating that, just because, like, the non-curse auras and stuff, like, the fact that it's already fractured on that grasping mail, I would have thought you'd be best off moving it first, then attempting to fracture it. I would say that Rift Coat is already in a very close to usable slot. I mean, it just needs to be rolled better, but it's well set up to be rolled well. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend recombing that. Like, the thing is that TFT exists because GGG don't facilitate anything like it on their forums. It used to be people had vouch threads on the forums, but you could just report anyone for harassment if they posted a negative review of your service. And you could also just make fake reports of, not fake reports, fake positive feedback. And so it ended up just being completely meaningless. It was as meaningless as the, like, feedback on eBay got at one point when I used to sell on eBay. You reached a point where you couldn't trust anything that was said there. I don't know if that's still a case with eBay, but back sort of 2009, I think it was, that things got really bad there. You just ended up not being willing to trust any feedback because fake feedback was so available. Again, I don't see any reason you'd want to use that as a recombinator input. Yeah, so that meant that TFT sprung up because GGG didn't offer any solution at all for trust-based trading, and then TFT just got good at dealing with the scammers. Whereas a lot of the other alternatives, there was another setup. There was a competing setup called the Path of Exile Service Trading Discord. What would happen is people would get banned from TFT, then they would go onto the Service Trading Discord, which was a bit less quick at banning people, and then as a result they'd get to scam people again, and that meant that people didn't want to use the Service Trading Discord because it became a bit of a scammer fest, and so TFT won out in the end between the two. But I think there'll always be trust-based trading of some sort. It's just that it's gotten ridiculous lately. If you wanted to remove the relevance of TFT, what GGG would need to do is, firstly, potentially make some of the harvest stuff, like they'd need to remove the rarest harvest crafts entirely and make the other ones tradable. and potentially rarer. But some of them can't exist if they're tradable because they'll just end up entirely in the hands of hideout warriors. And so you'll end up with it being a, like it'll just not achieve anything useful at all. So they have to make those, they have to remove the rarest, the most powerful harvest crafts at that point. Then at that point, they would also need to remove the 5-ways, or nerf them so hard that they're no longer recognizable, because they're another major thing that's pushed TFT into the limelight. And what else would you need to do if you wanted to? And then, remove 5-ways. Other rotations are a bit more competitive with playing the game normally. The other thing that you see a bunch of with TFT, because there's a bunch of stories that'll go up on Reddit where someone says, hey, how awful is XYZ action of a moderator? If you dig into them, a bunch of them that have been digged into, it's turned out that the person involved was actually banned for scamming, and they've gone to try and poison the well against TFT because every crafter they can drive off TFT is an advantage to them. Now, that doesn't mean that every individual complaint people have about TFT is without merit. I don't know. But there are just so many of these threads that get made on Reddit that now my immediate reaction if I see one is, oh yeah, so you were banned for scamming, were you? Fleckens, imagine the situation, okay, you're familiar with the streamer Path of Math? Imagine the situation where Reforge keeping prefixes was made tradable with freely. How many of those do you think, how many Reforge keeping prefixes do you think that Path of Math can use in an hour now? And then how many could he use if they were freely tradable? Divine Orbs are too common at the moment. They're rarer than Exalts as drops, but they can be farmed by Strongboxes. I think it would have to be something rarer. I think it would have to be Annuls. Annuls Annuls would probably be the best choice. Something that's meaningfully rarer. Oh, yep, that's another Enlightened. How much is the Enlightened at the moment? Can anyone quickly check that? Just got to check whether it's genuinely valuable. Yeah, Rakaria, you want to try to dodge the Exarch stuff. Try to dodge it. Don't worry if you stuff up one, you'll survive. If you stuff up a couple of them, it'll be worse. Additionally, the Exarch's media phase is meaningfully worse if the Exarch's phase, it's meaningfully worse if the boss has, meaningfully worse if the boss has, 20% or lower life. So if it's close to cull range, then it'll be worse. And we will now grab, currency tab. 600 left, folks. We're getting there. 3/4 of the way. Yeah, okay, so we'll say it's, if we say it's 75C, I'm going to put it in the premium cards tab. It'll be the worst of the premium cards. It's not going to benefit the majority of players, Fleckens. It's going to make things worse for most. It's going to reduce their access to those crafts. That's the issue there. Those crafts are going to be so much more expensive because Path of Math is going to be quite happy paying, 2.5 exalts for some, not for Reforge keep prefixes, but for a bunch of things like Reforge More Likely. He'll be quite happy paying 2.5x for it, and you've got to then outbid that, otherwise you don't get it. and he'll be able to use them dozens of times an hour. Lots of people do buy stuff off TFT. It'll be rarer as well because GG have been very, very clear. Like, they've made very firm promises that if they ever make Harvest if they made it tradable, then it'll be rarer. Reforge more likely has a few uses, but it's historically had been used a lot on quivers, although I think a bit less this league. Now it is just generally being used on things where you've got a lot of good mods, but not everything. Or it's used in conjunction with prefixes can't be changed on items that have got like ridiculous prefixes. And one of the things that it does is it lets you make permanent one of the crafted mods. So if you've got, say, if you benchcraft, say, 15 fire resist on an item, then you reforge more likely, it'll lose that 15% benchcraft fire resist and it'll get a random tier of fire resist as a normal mod. So that'll then actually be baked into the item. It'll be permanently attached. It's not going to be a crafted mod anymore. Costly Curio is a fun card. That should be more common than it is. Fun fact, we have no idea where this card drops unless there's been some refinement on that. I had one drop in a Veritania occupied Relic Chambers map that we got video of a while ago when the card was new. But I don't think we ever solved where it comes from. Whether it was the Veritania aspect, whether it was the Conqueror occupied aspect, but now that's every Conqueror map, or whatever it was. Or whether it was the Relic Chambers tile set. It doesn't seem to be Relic Chambers tile set because it's not that rare. Yeah, I had a couple of really good Reforge More Likelies the other day. I probably got the item price too high, but I'll have a look for it in a sec. Something that I need to just mark down and try and sell. Where is it? This was made with a Reforge More Likely. So it's tier 1% ward, tier 2 flat ward, 20% move speed, and more than 100% resist. So 109% resistances. And this came about from firstly hitting like tier 4 ward, tier 5 ward, and some movement speed tier, and 1 resist. So it might have been 12% fire res. So then benchcrafted cold resist on it, reforge more likely. Then benchcrafted lightning resist on, reforge more likely. And this is what ended up coming out from 2 reforge more likelies. This was a very lucky pull. And like, whilst I got it too high at the moment, I think we might just move that. I'm pretty sure that will actually move at 8x. So it's a very solid set of boots. It's a pity that the movement speed isn't better, but it still just has so many stats on it that it'll be something that someone will want. You know, if someone is resist starved on their ward looper, that solves all their problems. And additionally, it doesn't have life, which is a bonus on a ward loop item. Okay, Jim's cards. Jim's divination cards. Oh, wow, we are nearly full now. So it looks like we're going to get about 2,000 div cards before we fill up our stash tab, and that's going to be annoying, because then we're going to have to remove things surgically. Nice one, Ricaria. I think you'll find the Eater to be, like, would you say Eater is more confusing than Exarch, but is probably a little bit easier. Just that you've got to work out what to do in the in order to prevent his slam. Oh, if you could itemize Katarina, that would be amazing. Yeah, that would change stuff on TFT. Ashling's one of the most important of the... Ashling Slam's one of the most important things there. One of the things that's real... Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Demon as well. Okay, so that was 84 minutes in. So we got an Apothecary, and we got another super rare card as well. What's going on? And the patient? Like, okay, granted that's not worth as much, but still. I should have bought these. I should have bought these stack decks instead of opening them for Jim. Oh well. I guess Jim will be happy that one of his minions has made him some currency. Another Magnum Opus as well. Demon may actually be the rarest divination card in the game. Yeah, that is something that's a real feel bad with the betrayal system. Oh well, so this is definitely going to start the rumors of streamer client going again, getting a demon and an apothecary out of 2,000 odd cards. So yeah, make what you want of that. I also got a Mage Blood last league. Cerberus, how's it going, mate? I'm opening divination cards, stack decks for Slippery Jim, and I have probably made Slippery Jim fairly happy on this because we have the Demon is the second best card. We have an Apothecary. We have an Immortal. We have just a Nurse, a bunch of other stuff, but mainly an Apothecary and a Demon out of a 2,000 decks, maybe. Unfortunately, I have run out of inventory space in my stack deck dumping ground here. So we're going to have to solve that problem somehow. That's going to be difficult. Do I have any divination cards in here? I don't think I do I? No, I don't. Okay, excellent. Let us remove this from public. Tick. And make this my divination card dumping ground. So, yep, that's right. Okay, cool. This now needs a new name. This is Jim's Cards 2. And we can dump gift cards in here. Yeah, I have so much hoarding. I should have vended the 10C tab a while ago. I have kept doing trades, like when people have got a card, found something in there that they want to buy. I do come out and trade with them. I more see selling 10C items as doing a service to the community than doing anything useful for myself, though. Ditto, really, for 14 and 17C tabs I still have going at the moment. Anyways, we'll dump all this stuff in here. We know that the only things that are divination cards in that tab are all belong to Slippery Jim. So we can keep his stuff separate from mine. That's the main goal we've got there. That's why I'm not using my divination card tab, because that's mine. I still sell stuff in my lower tabs quite a lot. I mean, nothing, as I say, nothing's really worth selling. It's just you're doing a service for someone. They need the item. They're happy to find someone that'll trade it to them. I do keep dropping prices on tabs, although I don't drop below 10C. Usually at that point, I'll just vendor the tab at some point. But I've been slack with doing that this league. Yeah, I've known a few people to do that, Snuggle. That's I usually find, though, if someone's genuinely new to the game, which often they're not, but like if you find someone that's new to the game, Usually I think it's best for them not to be given stuff, but to, you know, like work stuff out themselves. D47, if we had, like, having been someone that did a bunch of market manipulation in EVE Online, so EVE Online is obviously a much more PvP game than this is, but I have a fair amount of experience in how you can mess with markets. It would do things that players don't expect, but mostly it would be pretty bad. You would see a tremendous surge in the amount of like in the you would see a tremendous surge in the, like, how would you put it? It's not really, it's not so much the gap between rich and poor players. It would be the time required for an average player to acquire a hotly in demand item would significantly increase. Which might seem counterintuitive, but you would find that a lot of the stuff that you loot that's like 60C or whatever, that ends up being a fair amount of your wealth over a league. Those sorts of things would be either their consumables and they would soar in price, or their equipables and they would collapse. You'd end up basically with the league economy would look more like the standard economy does. Where it's, once you get a lead, it's harder for anyone to catch up to you. It's not impossible, but it's harder. And especially when you factor in the sorts of shenanigans you could pull with market manipulation. Nice one, Ricaria. Yeah, it's a good fight. The Eater of Worlds is a good fight, I think. Can't get back into your hideout. I would say completely log out of the game and then try and get back in and see if that helps. Like completely close the game, and your second backup, if that doesn't work, is close the game, walk away for 30 minutes, then come back. Usually that will cause your hideout to disappear completely. See Undaunted again? Corrupted Nemesis item. That's right. One of the potential headhunter sources that's almost never a headhunter. Schmelzy, that isn't going to be... Well, I'm pretty certain they're not going to keep recombinators in any recognizable form. They just add too much top-end power. They removed Eternal Orbs for less. They nerfed Harvest for less. I do hope that they find a way to nerf them so they can stay, because they've been fun. But that nerf would be that would mean that they no longer serve the same purpose they do now. But yeah, if they aren't willing to bring back Eternal Orbs, and that should say that there's no chance of them bringing back Recombinators at current power. Yeah, I do think enjoy them while they last, or there's another Alluring Bounty. Gee, this, like, I've got to say that when I upload this, we're going to see some increases in the prices of stacked decks, I think, because people will think that my luck here has been ordinary, when actually it's been extraordinary. Like, you know, when your fifth best card is an Alluring Bounty, and you've had an Apothecary in the stack. What do we got here? So Demon, Apothecary. Oh, so hang on. Apothecary, Demon, 2 Alluring Bounties. Where's the... Oh, we just, of course, I just put it into the other tab because I didn't... It's in Jim's cards 2. That's it. Jim's div cards. That's where it goes. Sit. I did see that, Fleckens. If you had that pause window in maps, that is absolutely going to be abused to grief. Like, I was thinking, how would I mess with this? What you would do is you would find someone that you wanted to lock out of trading, and you would set up a bot that just opens trades with them. And that would be how you would grief people. That would basically, people would be begging for that to be repealed within an hour. It'd be like an emergency patch to get rid of that. It was a good thought, because I do think that once you factor in how would you abuse this if you wanted to break it, you start thinking, how would I abuse this? And then come up with something else that fixes that problem. And I think there's some good ideas in it, but at the moment it's not there. And would actually be worse than the status quo. I think one of the key things that they would need to do, if they made any sort of automated trading, they would absolutely need to have a long delay so that you can't just instantly reinvest. So if you had, like, Snugglebunsies talking about something where Snugglebunsies is mentioning an auction house. No one wants to auction stuff that stacks. People would want instant sell orders. So if you had a sell order marketplace for things like scarabs, and you had that posted, then you would find if you couldn't reinvest immediately, then that would work better. So either when you've sold something, maybe you have a 3-hour period until you get your currency from it or something like that. That would be essential for it to work well. One of the things, though, that GGG have said multiple times, and I think they're right about this, especially having seen what they've seen with Harvest being removed or being nerfed, if they do introduce changes to trade, substantial changes that make the game easier and make the game worse, then they're going to have a hell of a hard time removing them. That's second Luminous Trove. Interesting. And that's why they haven't done anything substantial with it. It's because they're afraid that any change they make is permanent. And I think they're right about that too. They can't make those changes then walk them back. So they have to be very careful. Like, I think they could do it safely with scarabs. I think they could do it with unmodified maps. I don't know exactly how you would handle that, but there's various commodities like that you could do. But once you start getting to other stuff, it becomes more dangerous. Snuggle, that sounds like an auction to me. One of the things, the reason that auctions don't generally work in games very well is that people usually want the thing instantly. Like, the end consumer wants to get their thing instantly. Not so much important if they're a trader, but if they're intending to use it, they want it immediately normally. Hey, Little Monaco, thank you for the follow. I'll dump more of Jim's cards away. And we've only got 220 cards left to go. We've already had a demon. We've had a demon. We've had an apothecary, and we've had a few other things as well. A nurse, one of the mirror cards, the 1/90th of it. So the Immortal, I think it is. Lots and lots of stuff. There's a lot of issues with the trade system at the moment. It's just that you can get worse than what we have now. And, like, Diablo 3 had to remove their entire, like, they removed their pay-to-cheat auction house, but they also removed the non-cheat one. Iodun is very intentional for console that they make they made the search shitty. GGG see that as a feature, not a bug. That it's shitty, that the search functionality is really bad on it. And that's because they don't want trade to be to be a completely dominant system. One of those things where this is one of the things with recombinators as well. Like when one system is much better for gearing your character than anything else, it becomes the default. And when it's something that's not fun, like trading is, and it's the best way by far, they're concerned that that can get really, really bad. So they therefore intentionally nerf trade through making it clunkier. And on the PC version of the game, it's through the clunkiness of the actual exchange, but on the console version, it's through the clunkiness of the search. That's, yeah, that is a deliberate design decision. Well, one of the things with making characters, like, because ultimately, if you make trade smoother, that increases character power. And then to keep the game fun, you have to decrease it in some other way, or you have to increase the difficulty of the content. Otherwise, people get to the, you get to the point where people were in patch 3.11, where people got bored and quit really quickly because Harvest was giving them the most ridiculous gear in the history of the game, and they also had nothing to do with it. It's like, Ashabi back then was easier than she is now, and, like, yeah, basically, people were just beating everything and getting bored. It isn't ideal, but I don't really know what the solution is with trade. Other than to say, I do think that automated trade for consumables would definitely be a positive, and or at least for most consumables. But it needs to have very careful checks and balances on it. There's imperfect memories. That's a big one. Oh, we're gonna trade. Okay. 2.2x 74. This will be one of the boots I was making when I was doing a video attempt that sort of didn't work out very well. Tempest Spur. So this is space for benchcraft. Yeah, it's just a general good set of ward boots. And it's 279 with resists. Moral to this story is craft ward boots. I should actually finish that video. Oh, yikes, is so that's the item that's selling there. Okay, let's drop that away. Yeah, it's a really difficult balance. Like, it's one of those things that's just so hard to get to work out right. I'm looking forward to sending Meistergen, who's the person Slippery Jim has as contact for holding all the cards. I'm looking forward to sending Meistergen a message saying, hey, I've got some rubbish cards for you, and mousing over an Apothecary and a Demon. /Delviers/Bestiary is as well, which is one of the least used commands, I would say, in the entire game. But it's there. It's... yeah, I'll give him a refund on that. He's made a mistake with buying it, but I generally work on the assumption of be a reasonable person when trading. Okay, let's just go and... Holy lag spike there. Okay, we need to go to Jim's Divination Cards Section 1, and we'll put away that. So that puts all the good cards in one spot. I'm not that fussed, Vertsky. I generally, like, it's 2.2x. I'm not that fussed about it. He's going to get it back in Exalt Shards, though. It's... he's in the middle of... Blast. I should have messaged first before doing that, because now I've made the invite. That's going to stay there until until I withdraw it. Let me just say. I'll just drop from that party and see. Unless you had the group bug. There is a bug with grouping that's quite annoying. Ah, okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, the bug invite is really annoying. Anyways. I'll just make sure it's the same item, but... And that's, yeah, that's the same item. Cool. Oh, yeah, that's what it was. That's right. This is one for a Reforge more likely. Or for an Ashling. Either or. It was overpriced at 2.2. I thought so. I threw some stuff in there that had no chance of selling, but that might be perfect for someone. That's someone was asking what do you use Reforge more likely on. That was a good example of it. And that's also something that could be annulled and then Reforge more likely if it hit the right thing. Just going to try and get move speed on it. Oh, so laggy. I've been getting some quite bad lag lately. Just Abandoned Wealth. I thought that was something better for a second then. I misread it as the Alluring Bounty, the other Exalt card, the one that's worth the most, other than Brother's Stash. Anyways, we've got a few more of these to go through. This is the last stack, at which point we will then put together some sort of summary of what we got, but it's going to be a pretty, impressive lot. And we will be able to see that shortly. This is going to be a very, very big payoff for Jim's investment. The Alluring Tig. One thing that's really strange, the divination card The Sun is much rarer than you would expect it to be. Given that Rise of the Phoenix is a pretty common unique, I've never really understood why the divination card for it is as rare as it is. It's actually generally beneficial to players, at least from a stacked deck perspective, that it is rare, because if it was the same rarity as Humility, which is what you would expect it to be, given that Rise of the Phoenix, I think, is the same rarity as Tabula Rasa, then you would expect it to be something that you would cop quite a lot. But it doesn't seem like you get nearly as many of the card. It may be that Rise of the Phoenix has had a rarity change, and that hasn't been reflected with the divination card getting a rarity change. And we're down to 30 to go. Almost there, almost there. Hopefully I've got the number exactly right. I'm pretty sure I have. I know I had 500 and something, and I'm pretty sure I've done 100 every time. If I'm off by 20 or something, then I'm off by 20 or something. Yeah, people do that a bit. That card is indeed pretty common. I just don't know that that is a particularly useful one. My approach to that specific harvest has been to use it in conjunction with the using in conjunction with rare divination cards that are not worth anything. I've been trying that, and then just see what you get out of it. Because I just don't know whether it cares about the rarity of the input card or not. And speculating that it might, I have then assumed that it's that you want to do it that way. So like I would put in a card. What's an example of a really expensive? Oh, sorry, really cheap, but very rare card. Let's go from my own things. Modest Request is an example. Modest. Oh yeah, they are usually cheaper. Arrogance the Vile. Oh no, that's not that rare. And what else could you have that's genuinely very, very rare cards that no one ever wants? Dala's Subjugation. Again, it's a small stack. But again, and that just comes down to the way that the card is, or the way that the thing is programmed, which we just don't know. All right, let's drop these in here, except for maybe a couple that we can't. Everything that we can we'll put in here. Everything else we'll put in the other spot. And these can go back into their own spot. Okay, so in summary, what did we get from this? We got one copy of the Immortal, so 1/90th of a Mirror of Kalandra, one Apothecary, 1/5 of a Mageblood, 1/64th of a Headhunter, 1/11th of a level 4 Enlighten, a couple of Exalt cards that add up to a bit. That's, what do we got? That's 2.8 Exalts. That is 0.875, so that's 3.7. Yeah, basically 5 Exalts in raw Exalt cards here. And that's not counting Saint's Treasure and Hoarder, which there are more copies of. And, of course, a Demon. So, and an Imperfect Memories as well. So, like, that was a huge amount of good cards there. Much more than you would expect to get from 2,400 stack decks. What else do we get in the way of Exalt cards? Let's just have a quick look there. 2 Saints Treasures, 9 Hoarders, and then on the other section, Jim's cards 2. Let's actually just pull these across. So, where's Jim's div cards? So, that's 3 Abandoned Wealths. So, bit more than 6, nearly 7 divination, nearly 7 Exalts worth of divination cards in actual raw Exalt cards. 0.1 Islandful. This is the only mirror card we got. The Immortal. So 1/90th of a mirror. 1.1% of a mirror. 7 Exalts, roughly, an Apothecary, and a Demon. So really, really unusually good lot of div cards here. Plus, a whole lot of rubbish for Slippery Jim to parse and to hate life for doing it. The other thing that's worth checking is Chaotic Disposition. This thing adds up surprisingly much sometimes. You can end up with a lot of these. Only 8. Only 8's Chaotic Disposition, which is less than I was expecting I would have got. Thinking in terms of other medium value cards that you get a lot of. Patient. Doesn't look like there's many of them. Nah, very few of them. And that's really it. That's the things that stand out. But let's just check the value of the Apothecary, because that's the big one, of course. Divination cards. Apothecary is 37 Exalts. Demon is only 6, so that's 43. The Immortal card is 7.5. So nearly 50 Exalts. 55 exalts once you count the exalt cards. This would have cost 30. So Jim's up. Jim would have been up. Jim would have been up even if that. Jim would have been up even if that apothecary was downgraded to a doctor. But because it was an apothecary instead of a doctor, he's up massively on that. Mageblood is trash. Mirrors the new exalts. But yeah, I think Jim will be pretty happy with that. Anyways, I think at this point, hey, Phoenixer, thank you for the follow. I am going to probably call it because this is the end of the project we wanted to do here. Okay, well, oops, I realized that I did 52 views, so let's just fix that now. This is not on stream, this is just me recording them. So we're just going to dump these ones on the ground. Another forward gaze. That card's always fun. Not that I'm going to get the fun of turning them in. Chasing risk for one of the synthesis things. So yeah, I just realized I'd miscounted, and then I checked the video and realized that my first slot was 150, not 100. So I'd done 2350 when I meant to do 2400. So let's see if we get any more good cards in this slot. Doesn't look like it yet. Lots of mediocrity so far, but that's to be expected. I said early in the video that about the top 1% of your cards are most of the currency that you get. It's actually less than that. It's like the top 1/10 of 1% might actually make up 50% of the value of your divination cards that you get from stacked decks. It really is the nurse and up stuff that's worth the currency. Academic is a good card. That's inspired learning. Top tier rarity. Unique jewel. Price can vary a bit on it. I'm not actually sure what it's worth at the moment. I don't think it's worth that much this league. Anyways, we didn't get any more good cards, but we'll just put these with the rest of them. And then that will be that. I should do that now so that we don't have any mistakes where we forget them. None of the overall headline information changes. Basically, everything is still what we had earlier, so there's no new things to add into the summaries. It's still a case that we got 7 pure exalts worth of cards minus a little bit. Plus we got the 7.5 exalt mirror card. Plus we got the 38 exalt Mageblood card and the 6 exalt demon. So 60 something exalts once you count all the smaller stuff that will sell. That was a pretty ridiculous turn in. That's all I got. Your Varlobs have interesting results.